Alright, so I've plugged in the battery, and now I'm just going to plug in the controller here to the USB. See? That's it right there. Just plug it in. And now you'll see on the VESC tool up here, you have the serial. So all you want to do is just connect. Alright, so we're going to choose connect. Setup motors FOC. It's going to ask us if we want to load default parameters, and we're going to say no. So select no, then we're going to choose generic for the motor, and then just hit next. Alright, medium outrunner, that's the 63, 74, 84s. And then motor selection, yes. Alright, make sure our cell count is right, so I'm running 8S, so I'm going to change that to 8 and hit next, and then it's going to say OK, and then it's going to ask us to run the motor detect here in a second. So we got a direct drive, make sure you select that. Now we'll run detection, it's going to spin the motors. I'll show you a video of that here right now. Noises. Nope, making weird noises. It's going to kind of rotate a little bit here and there, doing its weird thing. I recommend taking off the prop and just run it without. After we've done that, now we're going to go over to motor settings. And the first thing I want to do is go over to motor settings and FOC. Go to filters, make sure enable phase filters is false. You could fry some VESCs that don't have that, so you want to make sure that's false. Alright, general, it's an FOC motor, invert motor if we wanted to change that. If it's not spinning in the right direction, you can do that there. Sensors, we're not running, I just leave that alone. I don't change any settings there because we're not doing sensors. Now we go to current. I set 100 amps to the maximum continuous power of the Maytech 100 amp. The max current break is going to be any negative number. It can't be 0 though. So negative 40, whatever that is fine. And then absolute max current should be 45 amps per cell, so times 3 should be like 135 actually. Let's see. Yeah, 135 for the battery to not damage anything. So we can probably go ahead and change that to 135. And then down on the battery current max, I just put that 1 amp below what the motor current max is. Some people will say 15 to 20%, but I just leave motor current max 1 amp below, and that's it. Alright, so the voltage, we want to make sure the cutoff start and end. I do it based off 3 volts per cell, because they're so 3 times 8 is 24, and then 2.5 volts per cell for the cutoff end, which will just shut it off. It won't let it run anymore. That's based off the 3.7 nominal, 4.2 maximum, 3, and then 2.5. Wattage RPM I don't change. Temperature, I don't change any settings there. It seems to work fine. I haven't fried anything yet. I haven't got it up to 85 degrees in mine anyways. I'll get up in the 70s if I'm really running it hard. BMS, we are not discharging through the BMS, so I don't worry about that. And then advanced, I want to make sure if the maximum input voltage is not higher than your battery max voltage, so mine's 33.6, you want to up that so it'll run properly, so above whatever your max battery pack is. And then down here, duty cycle, I set that to 95 just from research. You don't want to run it at maximum duty cycle. And then sometimes it'll change when you do the setup, that duty cycle current limit, and just make sure that's a 100, and that's it. Yeah. And nothing else to change. You can kind of look through all the settings, but I don't change anything else on this stuff. And that's it. All right, and then we come back and we got to make sure we write motor configuration. So that's very important. Make sure you write the motor configuration. And then you'll see at the bottom right after you select it, it'll say it's writing it or whatever and finished writing. And that's it for the motor setup. Now we'll go and set up our input. Alright, I haven't even turned the remote on yet, my remote. We just hit next and then we're going to select PPM and then hit next. And this is where it starts getting kind of weird. So now I turn my remote, I have my remote on and everything, and now I'm hitting full throttle and then releasing the throttle, and it's kind of making note of that. And if you hit apply, after you've gone no throttle to full throttle, it'll kind of set those initial parameters. I try to get the VESC tool, the VESC firmware I want to be at 0 when I'm no throttle, and then I want it at 100 when I'm full throttle. So you add like a couple to the pulse length start. You add a couple numbers to try to get it into that 0 or just under negative, and then when you pull full throttle, you can subtract some milliseconds on there to get it to be above 100 on the VESC tool, and then the VESC firmware should be at 0 and then 100 when you go full throttle. It's kind of confusing, but if you play with those numbers a little bit, you're not going to mess anything up. The motor's not spinning right now, so kind of mess with the throttle. 0 is what we're looking on the VESC firmware, from 0 to 100 full throttle. And again, it's probably going to be a little bit in the negative on the VESC tool versus the VESC firmware, because the firmware will just make it 0 and 100, but you got to get below and above on the VESC tool. I hope that's not too confusing. But it takes a little bit of playing around with. But again, add to the pulse length start to get it to decrease in percentage, and then subtract on the pulse length end, and usually like that second decimal place is what I usually start changing. Again, kind of mess with it. Then select current no reverse for me personally, and then write configuration to VESC. Alright, and then hit next and it's finished. And then we'll double check everything. Alright, now that we went through all that setup, now we just, it's going to max out like immediately, and we can actually hit this real time button right here, which says real time data, and you'll see down here it's just going to go from 0 to 95% duty cycle really quickly. It's going to go like, that's it.